2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
A 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
Hey. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year for Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And welcome to another edition of the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn. I am joined by my co-host, Bill Pulsifer. And first of all, Bill, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself?
I am pretty good. Can you believe that this is already episode number 9?
Flying by.
It really is. This will be, I believe, our last recording while the regular season is still going on. The next time that we do record, the Mets will not be playing, unfortunately, as they did not make the playoffs, as we all know. So a little bittersweet, but as we mentioned before, there's always something and many things to talk about when it comes to Mets baseball. And, you know, hot stove for the Mets is always really hot.
Should be an interesting offseason.
It really should. I just want to thank everybody who is watching us on our YouTube channel by typing in on YouTube at Say Hello Media. And if you are listening, we are on all podcast platforms, which is Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, we are on it, Say Hello Podcasts. So thank you for all watching or listening. And also a big shout out to Steve White behind the scenes, our producer. He has his company out that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. It is root-recordings.com. Type that in on your computer, on your phone, and give it a little look. Again, root-recordings.com. That is our producer, Steve White, behind the scenes. So, Bill, here we are, a week to go in the regular season. Mets have been eliminated from the playoffs, and there's a couple things that are going on. Before we go into grading some of these players as we look back on the 2023 season, it's one of those things, and we talked about this before, it's bittersweet because I believe if the Mets didn't have their quote-unquote fire sale at the deadline, they would be right in the thick of things right now for that last wild card spot or even the 5th wild card spot, because the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, you know, the Marlins, the Reds, all those teams that are going for those last 2 spots, in my opinion, are mid. They're average. 86 wins, you know, might get them in. So it's a little bittersweet. But as we talked about, a little pain for a lot of gain. They got a lot of prospects. And, you know, seeing a Justin Verlander the other night go 8 innings, 1 run against the Mariners, it's like, wasn't he just a Met for like a day? You know, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on what are the emotions that you feel as a fan, you know, as a player back in the day where you thought your teams could go further than given the possibility by your owner or something like that. What are you feeling right now?
I mean, obviously, the end of the baseball season, win or lose, you always kind of feel a little of an emptiness knowing that you're not going to have any baseball around until the middle of February when pitchers and catchers report. So Obviously a little sad at the end of the year. Obviously, we still have some playoff baseball to enjoy. It's just not going to be with the New York Mets ball club. I was a little surprised at the sell off, I guess, but I guess the powers that be felt that the need for the future was more important than this season, which is understandable, I guess. They did get a lot of prospects. With all the anticipation of the season this year, it was obviously a letdown for everybody, the ball club, the fans, just everybody in general. I think baseball is better when the Mets is more exciting, and that's not just as a Mets fan, but I think when the Mets are involved, I think the baseball season is more exciting. So a little bit of a letdown, but I guess there's probably a little relief that it's going to be over with, and they can start looking towards the future.
Yeah, they did get a lot of prospects, and not every prospect, of course, pans out. But they got so many just by the numbers, you would think maybe one or two. I don't know if you've been following the minor leagues, just because SNY and Mets Twitter is all over following these guys that they traded Verlander and Scherzer and Canna and Pham for. But Drew Gilbert, who they got in the Verlander trade, he looks like a stud. He was the #1 draft pick for the Astros. And I don't know if you're familiar with this name, Jet Williams, the
Yes.
2022 first round draft pick for the Mets,
Yep.
homegrown, only 19. That's a player, regardless of the trades, that we could be seeing next year, along with Drew Gilbert. I mean, this guy, he was named Mets Minor League Player of the Year offensively. And I mean, he's got an OPS around 930, and he's not even a power hitter. The guy's a walk machine, 19 years old. So, you know, just going back and putting a bow on what we were talking about, the future is bright, but yeah, there's an emptiness. The Mets are not in the playoffs, but it's just seeing these other teams, like I said, the Cubs and the Reds, Diamondbacks, like, if the Mets held on to a Verlander, who knows? I've always said, get in, get hot, be healthy. You can win the whole damn thing. So, but there's a lot to look forward to, like a Jet Williams. He looks like the real deal.
Yeah, he's had a tremendous year in the minor leagues and is just moving himself up rather quickly. Only thing that's a little worrisome is we can't go from late 30 guys, 40 somethings to everybody's 20 years old too. You got to have a fine balance there. Obviously, hopefully Pete gets his contract done, and they're going to have some veteran presence, but we can't have 5 and 6 and 7 guys that are 20 to 22 years old in the lineup either. I don't believe that's a recipe for winning playoff games and making it where we would like to see the ball club.
And that's just another reason to sign Pete. Pete's been in what is going to be his, fifth, or next year, his 6th full year. You can't call him a veteran just yet, but he would have a presence, obviously. It can't be all baby Mets or young prospects.
Yeah, it's not that easy to throw a bunch of young 20-year-olds out there and expect them to compete at the level that the organization is expecting themselves to compete at.
Speaking of baby Mets, the last time we had you on the podcast, we talked about Beatty and Vientos and how Beatty was sent down to the minors, and now here we are. And you said competition was good for a Beatty or a Vientos, and look what's happened. Vientos 9 home runs as we talk right now, and Beatty 8. And they're good friends. They came up along in the minors together. It looks like the competition. I mean, you would know. I mean, I would know, and I wasn't even a professional athlete. Competition does spark a lot of things.
Well, it's going to make sure you're getting your work in. There's no complacency allowed when you've got somebody breathing down your neck, obviously. And young Mauricio's obviously came up and played a pretty good third base as well. He looks pretty solid over there and making the plays and making everything kind of look the way it's supposed to look. So there's definitely competition. Like we said before, a lot of the trades there's going to be a lot of competition for infield spots, or somebody, you think you can just plug guys into the outfield, or that's not the case necessarily. It's not that easy, especially if you haven't been doing it for a long period of time. And then to say you're going to learn how to play the outfield at the major league level, you can't expect somebody to do that. So there is definitely going to be some competition. I like what I've seen from Mauricio at third base, but I don't know where that puts Vientos and Beatty at this point.
Well, I talked about on the last week on our 8th podcast. I can't believe we're at number 9 already, but the Mets have now they have depth, so they actually can make trades now from a PowerPoint where they all their prospects are basically up, like Beatty, Vientos, Mauricio, Alvarez, of course. And now they have a second tier of guys that they traded, and even the Jet Williams, or pitchers, Christian Scott, Mike Vassell, who have come up. They can, like you said, you can't just plug players wherever you want. So Vientos, to me, doesn't really have a position, whether it be third or first. He's more of a DH. I could see Vientos maybe being shopped in the winter if they want some pitching help. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those guys, even some of the prospects they traded for, they definitely have some bargaining chips now that they didn't have. Some of the guys like Vientos and Beatty, it'll even put Mauricio in there just for the sake of argument. They now have got some big league time, so some teams have got a chance to see them play at the big league level and know that they're not trying to possibly trying to plug a minor league or quote unquote minor leaguer in. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of those guys are involved in trades for sure.
Yeah, it will be fascinating. There's a lot to go on in the hot stove for the Mets. As we know, Mets for clicks, it never stops with reporters, and it just helps that the Mets basically have to fill up their entire roster once again. Not their entire roster, but bullpen and starting pitching staff is a big deal. So we'll see what happens. Should be fun to watch. Let's do a 180 real quick as we talk about the future, but we also have to talk about what was 2023 as the season unwinds. I'll start with this. We're not going to do every player. I'll throw out some names that are bigger names, and we'll both give them a grade.
Okay.
A plus being the best, F being the worst. And no one's wrong. We'll just throw out some names and we'll just give them a grade in our own opinions and maybe why. Let's start off with a Max Scherzer. No longer with the team. And we're just going off of 2023, mind you, not last year when the Mets won 101 games. I'll start it off. He got hurt. He got banned for sticky stuff. He came up short in the bigger games, I guess, around the deadline, if the Mets had any bigger games this year. And I'm torn on giving him a bad grade or an average grade. So I'll just go and I'm going to give him a C, which is average. I wasn't too thrilled about what he said after he got traded, airing the dirty laundry behind the scenes with Epler. And on the field, if you look at his stats, they were okay. But, when we needed him at the biggest spots, he didn't come through. So I would give him Max Scherzer for 2023 a C. Obviously, he's hurt for the rest of the year with the Rangers. He's done. And that doesn't apply to this. We did get Acuna. We'll see how he plays. But, for me, Max Scherzer C. What about you?
I don't. I think you can go back to last year, and I know we're not giving a grade for last year, but I don't think Max Scherzer's been healthy for well over a year now. So I think C is a fair grade, but I also think that maybe incomplete might be a fair assessment as well, because I don't think you got to see after he pulled his oblique last year, his lat last year. I don't think that he was ever the same, and I don't think that the offseason got him all the way back to 100%. So he definitely battled, but I think C is a fair grade. But I think if I really was to give the grade, I would probably go with incomplete.
Okay. Yeah. He was, we could tell he was not 100%. His body was,
and he might not
betrayed.
He might not ever be 100% again. Guys do get old, unfortunately.
Father Time takes, everybody.
He wins every time eventually.
You can't defeat him. Yeah. How about Kodai Senga? That's a good one. What would you give him?
Very good one. I think he's been very good. I would say, obviously, early in the year, we would like to see more innings early in the year. You're gonna have to learn how to throw on the every 5 days, unless somehow they go to a 6-man rotation. But I give him a nice solid B+ for Kodai Senga.
Okay. Senga's not going to win the Rookie of the Year. He would if Corbin Carroll didn't exist. Corbin Carroll with the Diamondbacks will win it. Senga's going to get Cy Young votes. He's third in the National League in ERA. His ghost fork obviously is the number one pitch in terms of whiff rate. Opponent's batting average is number one. against him, striking everybody out. He's surpassed the Mets rookie record. B plus, I think, is fair. Only I'm going to agree with you on a B plus, and only because I would love to give him an A minus or an A because he's had a great year. He really has. He's basically solidified himself as an ace. His numbers prove it. He goes out, I believe, 15 straight games now as a starting pitcher. It's been 3 runs or less, 3 earned runs or less,
Tremendous.
which is an amazing run. But the reason I'll agree with the B plus, not better, is because he has to pitch he's going every 6th day, and that compromises your starting rotation, if you have to go to a 6th man.
Yeah.
So that's why. That's a good point. He'll have to figure that out.
I like B plus too because I think there's still something there for him to achieve
Strive
in the
for.
years to come. Yeah.
Let's go to some offensive players. I think that we should start with. Should we get a little morbid on this, or should we keep it happy and fun? Let's go. Fine, Pete Alonso. Screw it. It's a complicated one with Pete. I don't know if you want to start it off or
go ahead. You go ahead first.
His power numbers, of course, are there. 45 home runs, 115 RBIs. He's the only player in Mets history that had 315 RBI seasons. He's tied for 4th in Mets all-time home runs already. I've said it every podcast. Those power numbers, 40 to 50 with 120 RBIs, they don't grow on trees. But this year, his average is terrible. He's not hitting to right center. He's not coming up clutch. But his average, his power numbers are there. His fielding is fine. I have no problems with him at first base. He's a leader. He's a little politically correct right now after the games because he's got a contract year coming up, and I understand that. But if you just look at the stats and the OPS and the home run numbers, those are great, and they always will be there. What I just can't, and I love Pete ever since he came up in 2019, but for him, I can't, for a guy that's hitting like 220, it's tough to get around a guy that's literally hitting 220. I'm going to go, I hate myself for doing this because I love Pete. And again, these power numbers don't grow on trees. I mean,
it's not that easy.
He's arguably the best power hitter over the last 5 years in baseball. I'm going to have to give him a B minus for 2023. How about you?
I'm right here. I'm right there with you. I think due to the lack of the drastic drop in the batting average over the last 2 years to this year, I got to cut him a little bit of slack, obviously, because we don't know how injured he was when he came back trying to be a hero a little bit and try to be the leader that he is. I'm fluctuating here between C plus and B minus just because I'm going to say C plus only because I know that he can be a 270 hitter. I know he can do that. I believe that. But I do think that the wrist injury did cause him some problems, and I think he came back too soon, and he went into a really big slump when he came back because I'm sure his wrist was killing him. So I'm going to say C plus.
Okay.
B minus is probably fair, though. B minus is probably fair, though.
I can't fault you for C plus. I said B minus, and you bring up a great point that I forgot to bring up. And stupid me, that's a huge part of his season. He got hit on the wrist by Charlie Morton, came back in the 10 days that he was allowed to be on the IL, probably rushed it. And like you said, he was terrible for a month after. He probably came back too soon, and that cost him a lot.
I got to say this about Pete, though, because the amount of times that he gets balls up and in towards his face and his hands and all that, it takes some serious balls to be getting back in there. He doesn't move. He hasn't changed his approach at all. So I do tip my hat to him for being tough and going out there and trying to do it with a hurt wrist and never giving down, backing down.
It's a perfect segue because the Mets, I like to call them, and the old adage is gamers in baseball. Mets got a lot of gamers. They got Lindor, they got Pete, they got McNeil. These guys, and Nimmo. Yeah. These guys are all going to play over 150 games this year. McNeil, who we're going to go to next, he's played in every single game but one. And he's played every position imaginable other than basically catcher and pitcher.
Yeah, catcher and pitcher. First base.
He's played first base like an
Yes,
inning or two.
yeah.
He's played an inning at short. I mean, he's been everywhere, and
He's
he
just a
plays.
baseball player. He's a ball player.
Yes, yeah, and he plays every day. His year. Now let's go into Jeff McNeil. Now coming off a batting title, I don't know if you want to take this one first. He's not had the Jeff McNeil year that we all thought he would. You want to take this one
Yeah,
first?
I'll go ahead and go first. I mean, obviously coming off of a batting title and struggling, quote unquote, struggling at the plate like he kind of has this year, relatively speaking, to his past. I mean, I'm like you. I'm a Mets fan, so I don't want to be too harsh on guys.
You're allowed
But
to be.
I gotta go C. I gotta go a C with him. I gotta give him a C, possible C plus. You know, I mean, we're expecting 285 plus out of the batting average from him. I don't know how much it bothers him, and I'm sure he would never say anything about the changing positions on a nightly basis. It can't be easy, you know, because the majority of Major League Baseball players are kind of pigeonholed into their position and their spot in the lineup for the most part. So I know that's not easy for him, but I'm still a batting average guy, so I'm gonna go. I gotta say C. I gotta say C.
Yeah, it's a tough one because on one hand you have a guy that plays every day, is playing every position. Oh, Mauricio comes up. We can move Jeff into left field or right field, or Nimmo needs to play left field to give his knees and his legs a little, shot, a little rest. So put Jeff in center. He's never played there. Those are great attributes to have. But coming off a batting title where he hit 326, I believe, something around there, and then he got the contract. Now he signed a team-friendly contract, but that money is life-changing money, obviously.
Absolutely.
In real people's lives. For him to be batting, I think it's around 270 now. He's had a great August and September. He's moved it up.
All right, C plus. I'm going C plus. You talked me into it now. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I wasn't finished. The thing, Jeff always has those nagging injuries that we always see. But this year, he's played every game but one. So whatever they might have been, he's playing through it. Now, I'm not saying he's hurt. Everybody's hurt in September, If I had to, man, this is the toughest one I think I could give because he's coming off his best year, and it was smart for him to sign that contract when your stock is as high as it was, winning a batting title. But his OPS is barely 700. He's not hitting. He's starting to hit for power in August and September, but 270, and it was basically around 250 the whole year off a batting title. I'll go C. I'm going to go a little worse than people might have thought I would. And it hurts. It breaks me to do that, but You can't have a guy who's part of your core that you just gave a big contract to in terms of years and win a batting title and then basically suck for the majority of the year offensively.
50 points is a big difference. Obviously, 50 points is a real big difference. But people tell you batting average doesn't matter, but I don't believe that at all. I don't buy that.
I'm with you. It does matter. Of course it matters. I mean, it mattered for 100 years. So why doesn't it matter now? I just, when you drop that much in batting average and it's the whole year, and now that you're out of it, you can pad your stats, you can say whatever you want. All this power now, I believe, is up to 10 home runs. Little too much too late. So, or too little too late, I should say.
Part of me wonders about him was how much golf does he play? Because I know I've heard people say it doesn't matter. I would say it doesn't matter if you're a pitcher, but if you're swinging a golf club and you're swinging a bat, it's two completely different swings. I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, but I know he's an avid golfer.
Yeah,
I don't know if he put the clubs down. Back in our day, you would hear, they told him you can't bring the clubs on the road anymore. You don't hear those kinds of things. So I've wondered that how much golf does he play and how much it's a different swing. It's different.
Yeah, he could go pro if he wanted to. He's a great golfer. Cespedes, he did that. They told him Cespedes every game, home or away, would bring his clubs with him. Find tee time 9 a.m. for a 7:00 game, and do a whole 18 holes. And the Mets told him, literally, Cespedes, you gotta calm it down. I know eye-hand coordination in golf and baseball very similar, and all that.
Well, I guess with the launch angle swings nowadays, the golf swing is a little more similar to the baseball swing than it ever has been, I guess.
Yeah. We'll do one more. You want to pick the player? that you
Well, I'm
would like
sure
to
you're
get?
dying. I'm sure you're dying to do Lindor. So let's do Lindor
All right.
because we're going to leave Vogel back alone, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
That we'll we'll keep that between us. We'll go Lindor. I'll start it off.
Yep.
Lindor's had a great year. He broke his own record for home runs as a shortstop for a Met. He's a pro. I don't think he's going to get it as we record this. He's got 30 stolen bases. I believe 27 home runs. Very close to the 30-30 club, which is very exclusive. Howard Johnson obviously has done it 3 times. It's hard to do. He'll probably come up short. And I believe he's also got 30 doubles, which would be a 30-30-30 club. He plays great defense. He's streaky, just like Alonso. He's got more power from the right side, which is odd because he plays every day. That's another plus for him. He plays every day. As a right-handed batter, you see fewer left-handed pitchers. But he's had a great year. When all said and done, he's had above average numbers, all-star numbers, basically the best shortstop in the National League, if not baseball. Corey Seager might have something to say to that with the Rangers. But overall, defense, leadership, offensively, he's streaky. He's a leader, though, after every loss, says all the right things. If I had to give him a grade for 2023, man, because it's a lot like 2022, I'll go A minus. There's not much more Lindor other than cutting down on the streaks of him being hot then cold that he has other to prove. I mean, he's done it all. So it leaves an improvement for an A or an A plus. So I'll go A minus, and that's probably the best anyone's going to get. What about you, Bill?
Okay, I'm going to be a little more critical when it comes to my grading. All the things you said, I totally agree with. Playing every single day, going out there, being a leader. 2 things I feel like he needs to improve is we got to cut down on the strikeouts. He's not an Aaron Judge, a 6'5", 6'6" guy that, hits 50, 60 home runs. I'd like to see him sit around 25 home runs and bring that batting average up to 285 or higher and cut the strikeouts down. Okay. I don't see him as a home run hitter. I see him trying to hit home runs. It'll be interesting to see what this week is now that you said he's 3 home runs away from 30. Let's see how he approaches the games and what he tries to do. I'm going to give him a B because of those 2 things. I think that the strikeouts need to go down hopefully next year. And I'd like to see the batting average up in the 285 range. I mean, we talked about this before, and I know the game is different and the pitching is different than it was years ago. But the superstars, the quote unquote superstars, were 330, 340. These batting averages are. We got to get close. We got to get closer. 250 is not a superstar batting average to me, which it just is not. Even totally in this day and age, because. We'll use Aaron Judge as an example. He hits a bunch of home runs, but the guy's hitting all close to 300 all the time as well. Yeah. So I think that those 2 things are going to keep it at a B for me. I'd like to see the batting average higher and the strikeouts cut down on. Defense great, plays every day. Tip your hat to the guy. I'd like to see those 2 things a little bit better next year.
Yeah, I can't fault you for the B. Those are all fair points, and maybe next year he'll cut down on the strikeouts. He's a veteran player, obviously. So we'll see what's in store for Lindor. He's not going anywhere.
Nope.
Let's move on to some hot, trendy topics right now in Metsville in terms of, they unofficially hired David Stearns. They can't officially announce it to the regular season's over, but for all intents and purposes, David Stearns, as we talked about, is the new player of baseball operations. Now, the question is, I don't know if you agree with this, the first order of business for Stearns, who in the world is going to manage this team? You got to have your manager and coaching staff obviously in place before you're going to start looking at free agents or all that kind of stuff. So 3 names that I'm going to throw out there. His boy in Milwaukee, Craig Counsell, who arguably is looked as now one of the better managers in the NL, taking a low payroll in Milwaukee, winning every year. They won the division, or they're about to win the division, and they're in the playoffs every year. he could come along. He has rejected a deal with the Brewers for now. I don't know if he's playing chess or checkers with that. He still can sign there, but he rejected extension with Milwaukee. He could come along if the Mets say, "Hey, here's 5 years, $30 million." That would be the highest paid manager of baseball. I think Terry Francona is the highest paid manager of baseball, and he's retiring. He makes $5 million a year. And then you have Buck, who has one more year on his deal. I believe he's making $3.5 million. But it's tough to bring in a guy as a lame duck manager, which right now he is. They haven't extended him for 1 year. And then the other name is Bob Melvin. The Padres arguably have had a worse year than the Mets. They had more talent on their team than the Mets, and they're not making the playoffs. And for all rumors, I'm not in the clubhouse. I can only speculate along with everybody else. Bob Melvin might be fired, and Bob Melvin is a hell of a manager. That would be a name to keep in mind. So out of those three guys, because I believe it would be one of the three, what are you thinking?
What I think, and I like those three names. I think that if I was to pick one of them to go into the future, I like Craig Counsell. I do like him. I think that he's a hard-nosed, old-school guy who can do the new school thing. He's a lot younger than Buck. He's a lot younger than Bob Melvin as well, so he's a little closer to relating to the players still. I do think that Buck's going to be the manager next year. I think that he was dealt a little bit of a raw deal this year. There have definitely been some things that I question what's going on. The batting practice thing being one of them. Like, why do we not take batting practice, and why is nobody out on the field warming up before games? And if you're going to tell me the analytics guys are overruling the manager, then that seems to be an issue. To me, at least. But, I'm not involved anymore, so maybe that's the way it works everywhere. I don't know. But I do believe the Buck's going to get a shot. He did win 100 ball games as the manager the previous year. Raw deal this year, a lot of injuries. Things didn't work out well. I mean, like we talked about before, Diaz getting injured before they even stepped on the field. Pitching staff never being healthy together, not even once this year.
Right.
Bob Melvin, if there's problems in that clubhouse over there in San Diego with that, that's a little worrisome as to where he wasn't able to get through to those guys. But some guys you're just not going to get through to.
Right.
So maybe unfair to judge him on that. I know Bob Melvin was a bench coach for me when I played with the Brewers, so I highly respect him. He's done so many great things with the A's and that. But he was kind of given the keys to a brand new Lamborghini, and it kind of wrecked itself first year in. So, or second year, obviously, but this was kind of the first year where all those guys were together. So, I like Craig Counsell. I do think Buck's going to be the manager.
Okay. I would tend to agree with you. Reports are from like SNY 50-50 on Buck. No one knows anything. It really, David Stearns is the one who knows. I could see Buck for one more year, 2024, and then leading into a Craig Counsell.
I mean, I would say maybe short leash, Buck, but short leash,
Yeah, but then who replaces him?
But yeah, then you have the problem. Well, if Craig Counsell says that he's going to stay, is what he says he wants to be with his family and take a year off, then maybe things don't go well right off the bat next year. You got a guy sitting there, and money talks and bullshit walks. Yep. You might say, you know what, I've spent a nice amount of time with my family right now. I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. So,
and
fun to talk about, fun to think about, but that could be an opening.
Yeah, money talks. I mean, if you're Steve Cohen and David Stern says, I want Counsell with me again here in New York, just make Counsell say no to the biggest managerial contract ever. 5 years, $30 million right there would be it.
I mean, obviously the Stearns tie together is
huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
Their whole career. His whole career as a manager, it's David Stern. So
go ahead.
I could see Buck returning. We know what we get with Buck. I'm sick of it a little bit of, no retaliation. I'm being hit so much. And, you could be the smartest man in the room in terms of he's a baseball encyclopedia, but there's so many other variables that come into it for a baseball team. 162 games in 184 days, there's, as there's so much more that goes into it other than just knowing all the rules.
Yeah.
So we know what we get with Buck. Council could take the year off. We don't know. And 2025 would be a perfect year for him to come on in, So we'll see what happens. I'll agree with you. I do think Buck will be back his last year. It's odd. They could give him an extension 1 year so he's not a lame duck manager, because that's, you don't really do that.
Yeah.
And then Steve will eat his $3.5 million,
Yeah.
which is couch money for Steve.
Right.
So,
right.
uh,
I just think he was given a little bit of a raw deal. He was dealt a bad hand. Obviously, we can agree on some, there's some things that we don't like, but when you're winning, it kind of patches things up a little bit. So
winning is the biggest Band-Aid of all.
Yes, it is.
So you brought up the name Edwin Diaz. So it was announced that Diaz is not going to throw a game in 2023. He's healthy. I mean, he's ready. He's throwing bullpens every 2 days. He's traveling with the team. The Mets just, made an announcement that he's not going to throw in a major league game this season. He'll be ready for spring training. He's going to have a normal offseason. As a former pitcher and a pitcher who's come off a big injury like yourself, now you didn't tear your knee like Edwin, but injury is an injury. Let me ask you, do you agree with that decision? Because we spoke about it briefly. Mentally, it was probably a good thing for Edwin to get into a game, regardless of what happened in the game. But they made the decision. Nope, he's not going to throw. He'll be ready for spring training. What's your take on ultimately what the decision was for the Mets?
I would think deep down, Edwin probably would have liked to have got back out. I mean, I think that was his goal when it all happened, right? Was to pitch this year.
Absolutely.
At some point in time. And I don't think that's changed in his mind at all. I would think the Mets are, as someone quote unquote claiming he's healthy. Okay, yeah, he's not structurally damaged anymore. Is he 100%? Probably not. And I think that would be the reason why they would say, you know what, it's not going to happen this year. I think that if it would have came down to they felt like he was 100%, you would have seen him go do a quick little minor league rehab. And the fact that he didn't do that says, is he structurally sound? Yes, he's structurally sound right now. Is he ready for all out competition? I would say probably not. And that's probably the reason why they've decided, you know what, let's not even risk you going out there and taking a wrong step or something and having a setback. And then we're trying to rehab throughout the winter. So I would have liked to have seen him throw. I'm sure he wanted to throw, but I just don't think that he was all the way back, which they didn't, nobody expected that. He did, but that's what we do when we're players. I'll be back. I'm going to be back. That's just what we do.
And he's as close as you could come, throwing off the mound, throwing 95.
Well, hopefully he goes and throws a little bit of, in winter ball, go get a few innings with your team that, that you grew up playing with in the winter time. Hopefully he does that a little bit and comes back raring to go.
Yeah, in 2024, just having a Diaz back, it's mind-boggling to think that we just went a whole season, and we knew it was going to happen.
Without the best closer in the game.
Video game numbers in 2022.
Yeah,
signed the biggest contract ever for a reliever, and then boom, the WBC said, hold my beer. So hopefully he'll be back to Edwin Diaz 2024. Let's get into some mailbag questions here on the Say Hello podcast. We do this every week. We ask on Twitter. I posted on Say Hello to ask us if you have any questions. We'll read them live here on the air. And here we go. We'll just do a couple. And we'll start with Jeff Cohen 41. And again, all the questions are for Bill. Is Bill there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I just lost you.
Nope, I'm here.
I don't know where you went, but can't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm
so
here.
Jeff Cohen 41. He goes, what does a manager, aka Buck Showalter or GM Billy Epler, tell his players after the final game of the season?
Well, I'm going to go from my experience first. I can't ever say that I had the general manager come into the clubhouse and say something. Not going to say that doesn't happen now. I don't know, but the manager might have something to say. General manager might have something to say. But if I would think that it would be something about the good thing about this year is that it's over, and we can all put it behind us now. And let's take a little bit of time off to regroup physically and mentally, and make sure that we come in, get back in working out and getting ready, and be as ready as you possibly can come to spring training, so we can put this year completely behind us and get back to doing what we know that we're capable of doing.
Okay. Well, you just appeared back on the camera, so
Hello.
nice to see you. We got another question from NYMGI, your boy.
My guy.
Your guy. He's got a good question. He
He
comes
always
up
does.
with. Yeah, I'm interested for this one. How many players can you remember from your first start,
Oh my
Mets
goodness.
Astros, if you could remember both rosters, both starting lineups?
Well, let's
Your
go.
first ever
We'll
start.
go with the Mets first.
Okay.
Left field, Ryan Thompson.
Okay.
Left field, Bobby Bonilla. Center field, Brett Butler. Right field, Ryan Thompson. Third base, Edgardo Alfonso. Shortstop, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Vizcaino?
Jose Vizcaino, thank you. Second base, Jeff Kent. First base, Rico Brogna. Behind the plate, Todd Hundley.
Yep.
And then me on the hill.
Right.
And
this was, for everyone listening, 1995.
Yes. Okay. Astros. Bagwell, obviously. Derek Bell. Craig Shipley.
Oh.
Who's the manager of the Angels right now?
Phil Nevin.
Phil Nevin. And funny story about that
was
he didn't even make it through the first inning because he hit a foul ball off of his face, believe it or not. I threw a hard fastball that cut in. He fouled the ball off. It hit him in the head, and they took him out of the game. And that's when Biggio entered the game then.
Right.
Man, I'd have to look it up the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you coming up through the Mets and me being a Met fan, all the names you said with the Mets, obviously
the
I
Astros
remember.
a little harder.
Astros is
Brian
harder.
Brian Hunter. He was playing center field.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank on the rest of them.
Who was their catcher? Was it Biggio then, or
no? Biggio was playing second base at that point.
He was already at second. He's at second at that point.
Oh, was it Scott Service? No.
Nah.
No, it couldn't be. He wasn't an Astro.
No, Cardinal that beat the Mets in 06 NLCS. Ugh. Remember those at bats?
Doug Drabeck on the mound.
There you go. Yeah, great former Pirate, great pitcher.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. Hey,
I got all the guys that really counted.
You got the whole Met starting lineup and most of the Astros.
Most of the Astros.
That's a hell of a job. Good job by you. Let's go into our next segment as we wrap things up here, called Quick Pitches, where we ask Bill. He has no idea what questions are coming in right off the cuff.
All right.
And let's see if we could get them. First car you ever owned, Bill? What was it?
That I bought myself, or first car that I drove?
You bought yourself.
Toyota 4Runner. I bought that when I got drafted. Always wanted a 4Runner, and I made sure that that was my gift to myself when I got drafted. What
was the first car you drove?
First car that I drove was a Oldsmobile 98, a silver one with a blue vinyl top.
Okay.
That was my dad's car, and he got a company car, so I started driving the Oldsmobile 98. It was an 88 98.
Well, I think you actually answered my next question. What was the first thing you did with your signing bonus?
Yeah.
Was it buy your car?
It was. And that was the plan from the very beginning. I was going to buy a Toyota 4Runner, so I made that happen. And unfortunately, I got into a car accident. A lady hit me from behind and flipped the thing over twice.
Whoa.
And luckily, not too injured, just a few stitches here and there. But I did replace it with another 4Runner. And in my family, with my wife, Michelle, she's since then has had 3 other 4Runners, and we have a 4Runner out in the driveway right now.
You're keeping them in business, man.
Yeah.
That's what, 6 right there off the bat?
There's at least 5, if not 6 4Runners have been in our family between my wife and I.
All right. They must be. Apparently, we should have a sponsorship going forward for a Toyota for a 4Runner. I mean, it's too easy. I'm going to make a call after this. The last one, 2-parter.
Okay.
What was, if any, your weirdest superstition on the field? And part 2, who had the weirdest superstition on the field?
Okay. I did have a weird superstition. I did it from the time I started till the time I finished playing independent league baseball when I was 37. And I would walk from the dugout at about 45 feet between home plate and first base. And I would make a footprint on one side of the foul line and one side in fair territory on the foul line. And I would dig my foot in the ground just a little bit so you could tell that those footprints were there. And no matter what, as long as I was in that game, I would enter the field on those 2 footprints and I would leave the field on those 2 footprints.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember specific times, let's say runner on second base and 2 outs, and I give up a base hit up the middle. So I'm running back to cover behind home plate to back up. Guy gets thrown out at the plate. I would walk back into fair territory, go walk to the 45-foot line and kind of take my 2 steps in. So that was my weird superstition that I did from the time I started till the time I ended. It never changed. The weirdest one that I have seen from somebody else was Jose Bautista. No, what was his name? It's not Jose Bautista, but it was Bautista. He played with the Orioles and the Twins. He had the crazy batting stance.
Tony.
Yes.
Tony Bautista.
Okay, so the first pitch of every game that he played, you're going to hope that the ball doesn't get hit to third base, because as the ball was being delivered to home plate, he would stick his hands up in the air and his glove up in the air like he was praising God or something. I never asked him exactly what it was, because I did play with him in winter ball. But he did it every single first pitch of the game, and then from that point on, he played his position. So
as a third baseman, every first pitch of a game, he put his hands up to the sky
as the ball was being thrown to home plate.
Now I'm sure that had to happen where just by the first pitch, he had a long career.
So long, there had to be a ball get hit by him that he wasn't prepared for.
I would love to have someone track that down if it happened.
To see if it ever really happened. Yep. But
it had to.
I mean, obviously he had a very strange batting stance that was unforgettable. That was also very unforgettable.
Well, that's what gave it away. You said Bautista, Orioles, and then weird batting stance. He had the open stance with the waving his bat up high.
He would drop him down. Yep.
Yeah. You don't see that often now with the weird, quote unquote, weird stances. Back in the day, even Craig Counsell, when he played, he had a weird stance. Yes. You don't see that often now. Like, there were so many players back in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s that had those weird stances.
I think velocity has a lot to do with that. Velocity's ramped up so much. You don't have as much time to have a lot of useless movement or stuff like that. I think you've had to try to, even though the guys are swinging harder than they ever have, and that, I think they've kind of toned the stances down just a little bit, because you better be ready, because it's coming and it's coming quick.
Okay, well, Tony Bautista, I gotta check that out. I'm sure
there's got to be video of him doing it. There
has to be. I'm very intrigued right now just to see what he did. You painted the picture, but I just want to see it because
it actually happened. Yeah,
because it's weird.
The first time I saw it in person, I'm like, what is he doing?
What's he doing? Right. Like Tony, you got to get in fielding position.
And they're like, oh no, he does that. He does that every game, first pitch.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a weird one. Never would have had that on my bingo card.
Never.
But all right, that's all I got for the quick pitches for you. Those were some good answers.
Those were some good questions. I enjoyed those.
Thank you. That's going to wrap up episode number 9 on the Say Hello podcast. Once again, I have to thank Steve White behind the scenes, our producer. If you haven't, please check out his company by going online. It's root-recordings.com. Thank you, Steve White. And I want to thank everyone who watched us here on YouTube at Say Hello Media. And we're on all platforms for audio as well. If you don't want to see our mugs here on YouTube, anywhere, Spotify, Apple, Google, we're there. Say Hello Podcast. I had fun today, Bill, like always. Any last thoughts, remarks? We got a week to go before the season ends. It should be bittersweet, like you said.
Baseball season's always empty at the end. I will say this, though. Mets fans, watch the playoffs, man. Playoff baseball is great. It doesn't matter who's playing. And real baseball fans, watch baseball and support it to the very, very end, because once it's over, we're going to be dying for it to be back. So watch the games. Pick a team you want, root for somebody, whatever it may be, or just watch to watch. But watch playoff. There's nothing better than playoff baseball.
Yeah, I Couldn't agree more. Baseball will be missed when it's gone. It always is.
Every year,
you know,
every year. Like, what am I
every
going to
year.
do now?
Right. So yeah. For me personally, as long as it's not the Braves or the Phillies, I'm
That's fair
good.
enough. That's fair
Then
enough.
rivals, it's tough.
That's fair
But
enough.
other than that, if I had to pick a team, and I'll ask you, I like the Brewers this year. Mark Hanna, they got the three-headed horseman as with Corbin Burns, Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta. That's a good three to have in the playoffs. That's my pick. That I'll root for as well. Milwaukee
I don't.
with
I'm not going to
Council.
say I have. I don't know. I'm not going to say I have somebody that I think's going to win, because I think come playoff time, anything can
Anything
happen.
can happen.
I know you're not going to like this. I think the Braves are going to be hard to beat. I think the Dodgers are going to be hard to beat. But I think anything can happen, man. Anything can happen. We saw it with the Padres last year, beating two teams that won over 100 games.
Yeah.
So anything can
Okay.
happen.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of playoff baseball. So listen to Bill, everybody. If you're diehard Met fan and you're just like, crap, I'm done, the season's over, we still have a whole month of baseball. October
and it's
baseball.
Be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be exciting. I know it's
Always
not going to be our
is.
ball club, but the
Right.
playoff baseball is great. This is a great time of year. Obviously, we want the Mets in there, but this is a great time of year, and when it's over, we're going to miss it.
Absolutely. So with that being said, once again, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for everybody who watched us, listened to us. Until next time, I wish you all a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the Say Hello podcast.